Hey guys, it's Falene from Six Blue Warriors again. So, today's topic comes from more of a lot of people I've been talking to this week. Most of you are probably starting back up with school this week, since it's, the end of August, beginning of September. So today's topic is kids running away at school. The reason I want to talk about this today is because I have several friends who are dealing with this, and I have also dealt with this in the past. The first few weeks of school are just very stressful. And it's not really a break sending your kids back to school. Everyone's like, hooray, my kids are back in school. And I'm like, I'm excited for them to be back at school because there's more structure, but sending them back to school is just so much work at the beginning of the year. Give it a month or two, and then I start to feel like, okay, school, we're getting into the groove, the kids know what's going on, and it ends up being okay. But the first few weeks of school are always so hard. So hard. And I kept thinking after kindergarten, first grade will be a lot better. Okay, maybe second grade will be a lot better. And then I've got several people that I've been talking to, and they're like, we're in seventh grade, and I'm still saying that. I've got people who are transitioning from kindergarten to first. It's just hard. I mean, the kids are struggling with it, and they've got new teachers, and depending on the teacher, they may have more or less experience with autism. So, anyway, that brings me back to my topic about if you've got a runner while you're on camp, if you've got a child who's a runner from school. Now, let me tell you my little story here. So, we started at a new school. Aiden had just left the life skills class, which is for kids who have severe disabilities, and we moved him into a new school so he could be in a mainstream class. And we had warned them ahead of time, there's a slight possibility he could run away. This is something he used to do all the time, but he's not really doing it anymore, but he still could. And we had meeting after meeting with them before school started. And so we were like, okay, we're going to see how this goes. I think it was maybe 3 days into school, and he was having a rough day. And so one of the teachers took him out, or one of the aides took him out into the hallway. And then somebody else said, here, let's just move him into the gym and let him run around in the gym, get some of his energy out, just whatever it was that was causing him, because he was really agitated. And so he's running around in the gym and just running and running. And there's actually 4 adults in the gym watching him, discussing his behavior, trying to figure out what's the best thing to do. And there are side doors on the gym. And while all 4 adults were standing at the main entrance that they had come in, Aiden takes off out one of the side doors, and he doesn't stop. And they're yelling, come back, come back, come back. And he's not. And he's run off campus, and he's running, and he has gotten probably, I don't know, like 50 yards off campus or something like that. And all of a sudden, the PE teacher happened to have noticed this, and she took off running after him, and she finally ended up catching him. But he got really close to a major road before she caught him. So hooray for the PE teacher. Gold star to the PE teacher for being able to keep up with Aiden. Anyway, there was a big meeting, and we ended up having all these things happen in the school, and I felt like I was getting called into the principal's office, so to speak. So I don't know if that story rings true for any of you, but that was kind of my experience. And I want to share with you some of the things that we learned from that experience, and things that I've learned from talking to other professionals and things like that. These are things that have worked for us. They may or may not work for your child. So keep that in mind as I make these suggestions. But I want to start out, just giving you some suggestions that have worked for us. So one thing was, I talked about this in the occupational therapy film, but to give your child a transition object. So when they are going from recess to back to class, or when they're going from class to the library, or anytime they're leaving the classroom, they have a transition object. And it doesn't matter what the object is. It can be something that's comforting for them, or it can be something that's really just available in the classroom that the teacher can just grab and say, here's this book, or here's this eraser, or here is this something, and I need you to take this to the next teacher. Because most of our kids, well, at least Aiden, is very task oriented. So if I tell him, I need you to get this done, that's something that just plays straight into his strengths. He was more than happy to say, excellent, I must now take this off to this place. And now he's focused on taking the object to the next destination rather than being bored and looking around everywhere else and looking for an opportunity to run or getting distracted by something. He's focused on a task. That's one option that you can use to see if that'll work for your kid. Another thing that we had talked about with Aiden's teacher is that when they were transitioning from the classroom, that there would be a special buddy assigned to Aiden, one of the other kids in the classroom, that would, just hold his hand and walk right next to him and help him get from one class to the next. And then they just rotated which kid it was every day, which is really nice because then they got to see how sweet he was. And all the other kids really liked having that responsibility of taking care of Aiden, and Aiden's personality worked with that really well. He's pretty chill. He's pretty easygoing. So he was happy just to have somebody like, oh, hey, you're paying attention to me. Okay, I'll talk to you for a little bit, and then they would do it for the day. They would be his special helper for the day. So that's another option that you can consider, is just talking to the teacher and seeing if maybe they can assign a special helper with transitions. If none of those ideas really work and your child is a really bad runner, like they're very prone to it, something that you may need to consider is asking for a personal aide for the child to be able to have an extra adult who shows up and walks with the class whenever they're transitioning, not just the teacher walking the kids from one class to the next, because usually they just have a kid assigned at the front. The teacher's usually on one end of the line or another. And so if your kid's somewhere in the middle, then they can just take off, So as we all know, that can happen. So having an extra adult around to be able to help your child transition and to be able to help keep their behavior under control in the classroom. Like if your kid gets really upset and needs to get taken out for a few minutes, then that adult is dedicated to helping your child during their behavior problems. Schools are a little less inclined to assign a personal aide to a child because it costs more money, obviously, to hire another person. And aides can be difficult for children to transition off from. If they get super used to having a friend and another adult who's just sitting there all the time paying attention to them, when are they ever going to want that to stop? It depends on the kid. But that is two reasons that the school may bring up as to why that might not be a viable option. But ultimately, if your child is a really bad runner and needs an aide, this is where a diagnosis can come in and protect you. And you can say, look, my child has autism. He has a disability. This isn't really an option. He needs an aide so that they can just make sure that he's not running off during recess or during transitions or whenever it is that your child is running. Or even if they just jump up out of their seat and run out of the classroom. It just depends on the kid. Those are a couple of different suggestions for you as far as utilizing things that are available through the school. And, the transition object is easy. Assigning a buddy is easy. And like I said, most of the time the other kids are really anxious to help, especially if they're younger. They really like being able to be in charge and be responsible for somebody else. It makes them feel all important.